It's a real pleasure to welcome Kyle McDowell to the Caring CEO. Kyle is the author of Begin With We. Welcome, Kyle.
Hey, Graham, it's really great to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. What does care in the workplace mean to you, Kyle?
I think it means the same thing outside of the workplace. And I know it's a nuance in that question, but I have found through my travels that we put on this facade inside the workplace that kind of stunts our authenticity, and it slows us from being the real genuine human, the person that we are outside of the workplace. So for me, the answer is both inside and out, and that's where we just genuinely take an interest in those around us.
Yeah.
As a leader inside of an organization, if you're, to kind of follow your path on the whole name of the podcast, it's to be a caring leader inside of an organization. You have to invest time and energy into those around you. You have to understand what motivates them, what inspires them. A manager will come in and check the boxes on the things that they're accountable for and go on about their day. Whereas a caring leader, someone that genuinely is a leader, they care much more about the result than the results. They care about how the results are delivered, what inspires that person. For me, it involves understanding what someone wants to do while on our team, but just as important, what they want to do outside of this team. Do they want to get promoted into my role? Do they want to leave the company entirely? I need to understand what those things are, or else I can't help enable those. And if you care, you genuinely want to see somebody do bigger and better things than they're doing today. I think that's our obligation as humans, but especially inside the workplace as a leader.
What are some of the things you do to understand what motivates people?
There's no substitution for just talking, just conversation. And it's not, it doesn't need to be a scripted kind of, canned, corny, hey, what inspires you? What motivates you? Because there's no substitution for having those authentic conversations where, hey, Graham, what do you want to do? What fills your cup? What excites you? Because if it's not in your role today, I get it. It's called work. It's not called fun. It's, you're here. We're here because we have commitments. We have things we have to deliver on for our friends and our family, for ourselves. So, I just think it's important to make sure that we understand from where everyone is coming, where they're trying to go, and the role that I can play in helping them get there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Bob Chapman. He's the author of Everybody Matters. And
No,
he's
not.
the CEO of Barry Weimiller, a US-based business in St. Louis, built it up to a massive, massive organization, started at 20 million, then now 3.5 billion. But he had a discovery that he felt that, or believed, you had to show you care by doing stuff. And what he come to discover, and it was a real epiphany, was that you show you care by listening with empathy. And I really think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, actually. But it starts with listening, right?
Absolutely.
We've all been in that environment where the boss is quick to come in, maybe shout a couple of orders, check alignment, make sure everybody knows who's on first, where everybody's going. But you have to listen. You have to listen. It's one thing to hear, but we got to listen. So I think I love that response from Chapman.
Yeah. It's a great read as well. It really is a good read.
Okay, I'll check it out.
You wrote a book called Begin With We. What led to you writing that?
Wow. So, I would venture to guess that my background is not wildly dissimilar from those that follow you and are fans of your show. I began my career in a very humble way in a tiny little cubicle for a regional bank here in Florida in the US, and managed to kind of climb the ladder. I said yes to a lot of opportunities, even when I wasn't quite certain I was the right person for the role. I always threw my hand up to take on more and do more. And it seemed to work by most standards. I had what can be described as a pretty successful career. I led tens of thousands of employees. I led P&Ls in the $1 billion plus range. And the first 20 years of my 30-year career I was a product of the leadership environment that I observed. I was a bang my fist on the desk type guy, results at all cost. I was not a caring leader. I know that, and I acknowledge that now. And as my career started to really take off, bigger titles, sexier titles, bigger compensation, cool corner offices, the only thing that matched those surface level accolades was my level of apathy. I started to really loathe the environments that I was responsible for creating. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
Mm.
So this apathy led me to just a series of really deep sessions of self-reflection. Like, is there, so this is 22, 23 years into my career, Graham, and I was like, there's got to be more than this. You know, I've checked all the boxes career-wise, air quote, success-wise, but I felt unfulfilled. You know, I would guess when you entered the workforce, you brought a lot of optimism. You were eager. You wanted to make an impact. You wanted to find fulfillment. You wanted to do big things.
Mm.
And I was no different. And I chased those big things at the expense of genuine connections. I chased that at the expense of fulfillment. And it reached a point where the apathy was so strong, I had to get out of it. And I was, I don't want to come across naive because at this point in my career, I was leading thousands of people and I was in a place where I was fortunate enough to say, pause. I needed to just press pause in my career. At this point, Graham, I was on the doorstep of a divorce, which ultimately happened. My health was not in a good way. I wasn't a very happy person. I wasn't a fun guy to be around. And my career, my work was a large contributor to that. So I stepped away and I said, you know what, if I ever get a chance or when I get the chance to go back in to the corporate environment, it's got to be under a series of or a set of different circumstances. I wanted to be a leader, be the leader I'd never been, be a leader I'd never seen. So when I stepped away, man, I got this phone call maybe 2 weeks later. This was an opportunity to lead about 15,000 people on a $7 billion program. And fast forward, I took the role, and about 60 days into my role, I asked the leaders, the top 40 or 50 leaders of my program, to all come together because that would be my chance to meet most of them and also kind of set the expectation. And the night before I was going to speak to this group, dude, I was terrified. I had no idea what I was going to say. I just knew the recipe for apathy that I had experienced. But I knew if I wanted to reconnect with those emotions, the passion, the desire for fulfillment, the excitement that I brought to the workplace early in the career, I had to do something different. So that night, I was working on the presentation that I had to walk through the next morning. It was probably midnight, and I just started playing through scenarios of the times throughout my career where I was left feeling less than whole, or I didn't feel valued. I felt like I was just a number inside of a big machine. And then I juxtaposed that with the handful of experiences with really impactful leaders, those that really inspired me. And about 2 hours later, I'm staring down at my laptop and I've got these 10 sentences that each begin with the word we, still do. I'm not super creative. So I said, okay, here are the 10 we's. And I shared them with the team the next morning, and that kicked off a transformation inside of that organization. Never mind the results, because they're quantifiable and they were across the board improvement. Sometimes, and in some cases, the KPIs were at record highs, never seen before on this 15, 20-year program. But what was really impactful and told me that there was a bigger calling for me was watching the bosses inside that organization transition to real leaders, watching them genuinely give a shit about the people around them, which was really fun to watch. So I had some success with the principals there. I took them to another organization, even bigger organization, had a fair amount of success there. And the team from the original birthplace of the 10 We's, members of that team started to call and say, okay, you talk about being about it. Are you really about it? And we think you've got a bigger calling. When's this book coming? And I said, I'm not writing a book. That's not who I am. I'm not, no. So I followed their advice, put the book together in about a year and a half. It became a USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestseller. And those principles have kind of transcended my work life. And now they drive everything I do. They are my compass for all things on this planet. And now it's my mission to spread those principles so others can have the same level of benefit and fulfillment that I've found.
Can you give an example of, 2 or 3 ways and why they work, why they're impactful?
Yeah, you bet. And I think there's when I kind of enumerate or walk through 1 or 2 or 3, the reaction I usually see or even hear is like, well, no shit, Kyle. Of course, we're going to do that. But it's in collection. So for example, the first we of the 10 we's is we do the right thing. Always. That one word, second sentence is never left out. And it sets an expectation of here's who we are, here's how we operate. If we're debating which path we're going to take, we're always going to take the path of the right thing. Now we can disagree and kind of banter back and forth on what the right thing is, but we'll never approach a scenario with any other thing in mind. So that's the foundational principle, but I'll jump to two others that I think are really powerful and impactful. It's we number 8 is we challenge each other because, as you know, in most environments, challenges are reserved for the boss and it's one direction. But if we really want to be excellent and we want to get the most out of this team, not just from a results perspective, but from a connection perspective, from alignment, from impact, we've got to have challenges come from every direction. Peers have to look at each other and say, hey, come on, we challenge each other. I know you got more in the tank than this. Likewise, members of the team must be enabled and empowered to challenge their leader. The math alone says that one person can't challenge 10, 20, 30, 10,000 people effectively. We've got to have everybody with the right and most relevant information at the table saying, hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. I think we can do better than this. Challenges must be grounded in data or experience. They can't be your opinion. We all have those. We've got to come with facts. But then the corollary, the principle that follows that, I think is just as impactful. It's we number 9. It's we embrace challenge. Whether it's an external market threat, whether it's a budget situation, or whether it's a challenge from high on in the organization, we're going to embrace it. We're going to be galvanized by those challenges. And we're going to look back at it and say, man, look what we accomplished there. This thing in front of us now, it's nothing because we overcame this challenge. We embraced this one. The umbrella statement that I would end this response with is a principle is a foundational belief. It is something that we hold to be true. And when we get a team of people to align around a series of fundamental beliefs, it makes awkward and tough conversations so much easier. So for example, Graham, if you're on the team and your results are down, you're struggling a little bit, one of the principles is we pick each other up. So you and I would have a chat and I would say, hey, Graham, I've noticed you're not quite where you were in terms of your performance, or maybe I'm just noticing that there's a general kind of lack of energy on your part. And we pick each other up. I care. I want, you don't have to share all the details with me, but I just need you to know that I'm aware, I see it, and I'm here for you. And Graham, remember, we also challenge each other. So I'm going to challenge you, and we're going to align on the next series of expectations with dates and outcomes and be very explicit on the expectations. But it makes those conversations so much easier because I'm coming at you from a place of alignment versus a place of you being inferior or I need something more out of you.
Yeah. I really love that. And I've been fortunate enough to have Amy Edmondson on the show, who real expert in psychological safety. And that's really about people free to be their authentic selves. People can suggest ideas and not be blasted down. They can also challenge ideas if, they don't think they work. And it's just so essential. It's a very, very complex business world out there, isn't it? And no one person has all the answers. And the best thing that we can do is to have that really we mindset. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dave Logan. He wrote a book called Tribal Leadership. And he talks about the 5 moods of workplaces. And it starts off at life sucks, my life sucks, I'm great, we're great, and life's great. And so he's done a lot of assessment of tribes who he defines as from 20 to 150 people. And he has found that the vast majority of people in the I'm great category, which is when it's ultra competitive, people try to compete with each other, withhold information that doesn't serve them.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you're talking about. In my keynotes, I often do, live polls where I ask people to reflect on the best teams they've been in. It could be a sports team or last role, this role, when they worked at McDowell's. And then I ask them to really picture the people that were in that team and what made them special, what made it unique, and have them vote on about 10 different factors. And the top 3 in 95% of the cases are we cared about each other, we had each other's back, and we enjoyed working together. These are all very human things, aren't they? Just as it's incredibly human, and it's about belonging. It's where if we feel we belong, we can almost get through anything.
Amen. Amen. And I go back to the first question you asked at the top of the conversation about, what it means to be to display and care inside the workplace. And that's why I went back to my answer had that caveat. It's no different than outside the workplace. We want to add value. We want to add value to our relationships outside of the workplace, just like inside the workplace. We want to feel valued. We want to feel as if we're contributing. We want to know that we want to be reminded. I appreciate what you did. I'm glad you showed up today. I'm glad you gave your level best, those types of things. And if we can connect the value that we're delivering, now we're in a utopian state. It's really hard to come by. But you said something a moment ago, Graham, that I think is so pervasive inside most organizations. And that's this, for me to win, someone else must lose mentality. It's this almost cannibalistic. And as we've both been around the block a few times. That's simply not the case. It's just not the case. And as the leader of a group of one or a group of 10 to tens of thousands, if you win, I win. It's just that simple. But there's this defensiveness and this like territorial turf protection that we take on when we enter the workplace that is just not healthy. And that's part of my mission, is to make, you won't hear me, you rarely will you hear me spout off 14-letter words, business jargon, corporate cliche stuff, because people don't relate to that.
They do.
They just don't. And I think to build trust, I think trust is a product of authenticity and relatability. And when you see me being authentic, and that doesn't mean I'm going to sugarcoat things. If I'm nervous about something or I'm concerned about a threat or whatever the case is, you're going to know it. But I'm going to lean into the team instead of just acting as if it's not an issue and that you guys will all figure it out. Like my business card is too important to help us figure this out together. But when we're authentic about those things, paired with relatability, in other words, you got a sick child at home, man, I can relate to that. Or you're burned out, you're just tired. Yep, I've been there as well. It's when I act as if I can't relate to that burnout, and you've got this laundry list of things you got to get done. Go get it done. Well, that's not reality. It's not relatable. And that is what creates this thing I call the leadership gap. And that's where the boss and the team are on different pages. They have different kind of priorities. And then there's this level of skepticism that is really, really a problem once that trust or the authenticity and relatability are not on full display from that leader.
Yeah. You've had some very, very busy roles and very hectic roles. How have you practiced self-care? What are things that you think fill your own tank? What are the things that, help you to be a better person?
Oh, I love that. I love how you ended that question. Be a better person. Well, for me, and I by the way, I think it's, again, back to the work versus out of work kind of conundrum that many of us find ourselves. I can't be the best husband that I could be to my wife if I didn't invest time and energy into myself. It's no different inside the workplace. I can't be the best leader that I'm capable of being if I don't take care of myself. And for me personally, it's fitness. I have to sweat almost every day. And that could be as simple as a hot walk around the block here in Florida, which is not hard to come by, or a much more intense workout. But I try to start every day with a good sweat because it seems to position me to take on more throughout the rest of the day. And that for me, it's my go-to. And by the way, when stress gets really high, even if I've had a workout that morning, I'll end the day with a workout. And even if it's a quick 15-minute session, just moving. But for me, that movement it creates momentum kind of on all fronts, but especially up here.
Yeah, yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, same thing. In fact, after this, it's what is it here at 6:30 in the morning. So when we finish this, I'm going to do a workout. So yeah, I've had some really huge life challenges in the past. Long periods of depression and that sort of thing. And I basically came out of it, thinking that I wanted to have, three outcomes, and the first one is vitality, and that's our physical health. So it's moving well, resting well, eating well. Intimacy is about building, strong and supportive relationships around us, both at work and at home. And prosperity is our career well-being, feeling fulfilled in what we do. And so that the acronym for that is, VIP. And, I talk about people, You must act like a VIP. That means just topping up each of those cups of well-being each day, covering those things. And, it was a transformation for me to do that and practice that and live that. And, had a similar situation to yourself when I was a vice president for Carney, the global management company. It was just working my ass off and often letting important things go, like relationships and staying well. And if we don't keep fuel in our own tank, we can't, support others. It's just we can't give what we don't have.
Isn't that the truth? I'm curious to get your take on this. For me, I found, especially around those years that I mentioned where I stumbled across these principles. I mean, I created them, sure, but I didn't, there's nothing earth-shattering or controversial within them. As I mentioned, most people would just say, well, yeah, no kidding, we're going to do those things. But I'd be curious to see if the challenge for me was during that time, a lot less so now, is I conflated my identity, my existence on this planet with my work.
100%.
And when something goes wrong in the workplace, you get asked to go do another job. You're not welcome at that company any longer. There's a period of detox that has to take place. And for me, so I left a massive pharmaceutical firm, like Fortune 10 firm, under not the best of circumstances, but I have to be honest in that when I departed, I had a non-compete and forced me to sit on the bench for 18 months. The first couple of months of that, Graham, was absolute detox. I could not unplug from this thing, but there were no emails coming. Nobody was waiting to hear from me. And it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, this is not your purpose on this planet is bigger than what you do for a living. But if you can combine those things and have your purpose on this planet be connected to what you're doing for a living, the sky's the limit in the impact you can have. And that's how I approach my work today. And I tell people all the time, because I recognize that may come across a little woo-woo for some people. But get this, and I'm sure you know this. During our lifetime, we will spend about 100,000 hours working. The only thing you'll do more on this planet is sleep. So if you're this person that believes that the time on this planet is fleeting and you want to make an impact, boy, the workplace is a hell of a place to start, because that's where you're going to spend the most amount of your time other than sleeping. So I've tried to marry that. I've tried to marry my work life, the ability to make some money, find fulfillment, but also have an impact. If you can marry those two things, boy, you really have found something special. And that's part of what I try to get folks to recognize. Your job can be a job if you approach it as such, but it can also be an impactful thing that drives so many other aspects of your life if you approach it that way. And that's how I choose to approach it.
Yeah. Just jumping to another subject, I understand you're a Pearl Jam fan, and would you mind just telling our guests how that happened and how you've come to see 105 shows?
Well, respect to your research. So thanks for that. I don't think I've ever been asked this on a show. It's true. I've been to north of 100 shows, and started when I was 17 or 18. I've seen Pearl Jam in 3 countries, traveled across the country multiple times. And for me, it was an outlet. This started back in the 90s when grunge and alternative rock was what it was. And it was an outlet for me. The music and the lyrics always were a draw to me. But now, Graham, I'm in a text exchange. We were just going back and forth earlier today with a group of people that I only know from Pearl Jam shows. We would come together in a city, bounce 2 or 3 cities together, and we wouldn't see each other for months or years till the next tour. So I'm very fortunate. I've had some lifelong friends, and what's really cool is my best bud who bought the first set of tickets that we ever needed to see a show back in 1994. He's probably been to 50 shows with me. And it was and still is kind of our thing. It's like every time a tour is announced, it's like, okay, Aaron, are we going? What are we doing? So it's been a thing, but it's also been a source of really great community and connection as well. Really respect that research. It's impressive.
Describe your first concert with Pearl Jam.
Life-changing. life-changing. It sounds so corny. I know that. But, in those days, a great rock show had lots of lights and lasers and smoke and pyrotechnics and all this. The Pearl Jam show was the antithesis of that. It was obviously loud and energetic, but they stripped down all of that other nonsense to have the music and the performance be the real show. And I remember the very next morning, I got home late that evening, still lived with my parents, obviously, and my mother was getting ready for work the next day. How was the show, Kyle? And I hadn't been to a lot of concerts at that time. I said, Mom, I was just like, I was flat. Mom, it was the coolest experience. We had the worst seats ever. The venue that we saw them that evening no longer exists. It was demolished since then. That's how long ago this was. But it was the beginning of a really beautiful part of my life. And I've probably been to 40 states now because of them, Canada, Mexico as well. So it's been it's a significant part of my life. It really is.
Life-changing's a very strong term. What do you think changed in you through that first concert?
Wow, I love your questions, man. I don't know that the first concert was kind of an epiphany or pivotal moment in terms of the change. But there's for any Pearl Jam fans that are watching this or listening to our conversation, I'm certain they would also agree that there is an authenticity that comes from Eddie Vedder, the lead singer, as well as the band. These are guys that back in their heyday in the 90s and early 2000s, they had tours with no sponsors. They didn't want to be connected to sponsors that they didn't fully embrace or that were more kind of corporate-y than they were about the music. The lyrics have always been really impactful and powerful to me. I mean, at one point in my life, I had this massive canvas that had the lyrics of one of my favorite songs written in the most beautiful font. It was a massive canvas, and it was just a reminder, because there's anybody that's even a casual fan of music, there are lyrics here and there that just resonate. I gave a speech at Kellogg where I went to business school, and during that speech, I quoted a couple of Pearl Jam songs because to me, they're not just expressions or cliches or even memes. They are powerful things. And by the way, the quote I shared it's from one of my favorite songs called Unthought Known, is dream the dreams of other men and you'll be no one's rival. And from that, I took, be different, be you, be unique, dream your own dreams. Don't let somebody else set those for you. Be you, dream what you want to dream and go chase it like hell. Yeah. That one sentence from that one song it's by the way, that song, that album came out 20 years ago, maybe 15, and it's still etched in my brain. It always will be. Who is your go-to?
Mine is Bruce Springsteen, and it's for similar reasons. Incredibly authentic. Just has built this massive tribe, like people, who come to Australia and go to 5 areas, and many people go to all 5. It's just amazing, and I think it is so cool that a lot of people can relate to his music as well. In fact, there was a documentary that came out called Bruce and Me, and just interviewed people where he had this profound impact on their life, really, really huge. And, obviously we've chosen different bands, but for the same reason. I think it's extraordinary.
Like a good song or a good band can change your mood instantly.
Yeah.
And I'm such a nerd, I admit it. So Pearl Jam Radio on Sirius XM, they replay concerts throughout the day. And it's so fun for me when a concert comes on, I'll turn to my wife and go, yeah, I was there. And then there are specific songs or parts of songs or maybe banter in between songs. And I'm like, watch this. Here, listen to what he says here. So I've got this huge catalog of CDs as well, dating myself, but I'm glad we can connect on this, because there are some people, no criticism of them. Music to them is just a form of entertainment. And of course it is for me as well. But if you allow it to be, it can be something much deeper. It can be inspiring and motivating. And that's what the band has been for me for a long, long time. And I've been fortunate enough to meet many members of the band. And, there's this risk that when you meet one of your heroes, and I would describe Vedder as a hero of mine, that you can be disappointed. And it's never been that. It's always been the most gracious interactions. And almost kind of fuels my borderline obsession because they're such good guys.
Yeah. Work is very tough now. There's so many challenges, be it economic, technology with AI, and leadership teams have to lead change. How do you work together as a team to recognize the problem and decide what action you're going to take? What are the really real secrets to that, do you think?
Well, for me, it doesn't start when the problem surfaces. It's well in advance of that, and it involves setting our expectations of one another, and that's the standard, and that's the principles. So I think most organizations do a really fine job saying, "Hey, Graham, welcome to the team. Here's your new hire orientation. Here are the P and Ps. Here's where you check the standard operating procedures. Here are the 5 or 6 things by which we will judge your success or lack of, your performance criteria." But where I've found so many organizations broadly, but leaders specifically, fall short is saying, "But here's how." Not the X's and O's. Here's how. Here's how we behave on this team. Here are the expectations for this team. We own our mistakes is one of the 10 principles. We measure ourselves by outcomes, not activity, is another. So when we set these expectations from the very beginning, from the orientation moment on, actually during the hiring process, hey, these standards are how we hold each other accountable, and they are the expectation. So when the adversity does strike, those conversations become less about reacting and more about responding. Okay, we got this gnarly problem in front of us. It's like, all right, we embrace challenge. We know that. When, as I mentioned earlier, someone's down, we pick each other up. Outcomes over activity. It's when we establish the expectations for how we get things done, there's really not a lot that we can't accomplish when it's thrown at us. So not only does it set the table for how we behave, it also sets the understanding for the approach that we will take when adversity strikes. Anybody can lead during good times. It's so easy. It's so easy for me. It's when adversity strikes, when there's uncertainty, when there's challenges around every corner, and that can mean inside and outside of the workplace as well. How we react to them almost becomes second nature because we've already subscribed to these principles, and it makes those conversations and overcoming the adversity not easy, but we're more aligned on how we overcome.
Yeah. Can you think of a time when you led a team when not everyone embraced the me, the we mindset and were
Oh
more
yeah.
self-focused? Can you turn people around in that situation, and how do you do it?
I'd be naive if I were to respond with a resounding yes. It's not true. It's never my goal to get 100% of the team on board. Be nice, but I think that's naive. So what I found either in my work since writing the book and working with organizations or individual leaders is really no different than what I found when I was the leader inside corporate, kind of rolling out and implementing the principles. And it's typically this of the group of people, there's probably a 50% ish cohort that's like, this is exciting. I am on board. Point me in the right direction. Let's go. They're on board.
Mm.
Of the remaining 50%, I would say that group is cut in half. The first group is okay. We'll see, kind of cautiously optimistic, if you will. And then that last group is he's full of shit. That guy is so full of it. We've seen guys like him or gals like him come and go, and I am not buying it. I don't try to convince those people with my words. As a matter of fact, I don't try to convince anybody with my words because that group, that last group, I call them the obstinate group. They're obstinate not because they choose to be. They're obstinate because they've been burned. They've probably had someone like me come in and espouse this standard that they want the team to be known for, or a list of standards that they want the team to be known for, but they don't live those standards. They don't live those principles. So I'll give you a real life example. So when I first introduced the principles to that organization, this was back in 2017, probably 40 people in the room, maybe 50. Half, boy, I could feel the energy. Another group was skeptical. There's a fella in that group he asked me for my presentation because he wanted to share it with his team, or so I thought. he admitted later he only wanted the presentation to check the file properties to see if I had created the principles or had I stolen or borrowed from somewhere else. But in the obstinate group, there was a woman who challenged me at every corner, every turn, in public settings and one-on-ones. She was obstinate, and it was obvious that she was not on board. I could see in her behavior that I was full of it, that I was, a corporate robot just wrapped in a different wrapping paper. So Julia, her name is Julia, and she knows I share this story, so there's no problem. When my favorite example is, I said, "Hey, Julia," this is probably 2 months into my role. I say, "Hey, Julia, I need an Excel workbook." She was responsible for this pricing for our biggest contract. I said, shoot me over that workbook, because I was still new and I wanted to learn a little bit more about how the references worked, what tab fed what tab. I was just trying to learn. So Julia hit send on an email to me that had a screenshot from Excel. And right, your reaction is spot on. The head shake is, that's not helpful. So I very politely responded and said, "Hey, Julia, I need the whole workbook because I want to see the references." "No problem, Kyle," she responds. And now I get the workbook, but it only had one tab and it was all hard coded. So I couldn't see the references again. And at this point, Graham, I was ready to bang on the desk. I was ready to make the phone call and be like, "Send me the document," like the old Kyle. But for whatever reason, that moment between stimulus and response, I recognized two things. One, she's not acting out or being obstinate just for the sake of being obstinate. She's a high performer. She's got a hell of a reputation. She's brilliant. I noticed that. But she didn't trust me. And I recognized, if I was going to be the guy standing in front of this group of leaders saying we challenge each other and we embrace challenge, but I didn't embrace her challenge, however inappropriate it might have been, then I was a hypocrite. And everything else doesn't matter, because my words are almost irrelevant if my actions aren't aligned with them. Fast forward nearly 10 years later, and Julia is one of my closest confidants in the work world. We haven't worked together in half a dozen years, and we still have one-on-ones every 6 or 8 weeks or so, just to keep up with one another and bounce ideas and career moves off each other. And I highlight that example and I share that, Graham, because had I taken the classic approach, and I think it's the approach that most bosses in my situation would have responded with, our business card saying, "Stop the nonsense, send me what I asked for, and let's go, move on," I would have lost her, and I would have lost out on the opportunity for that connection. And I'm better off having Julia in my circle than without. She helped me name the book, actually. Right. So that's a long-winded story and way of saying words are cheap. You've got to live it. You've got to set the standards. You've got to live it every single day. And when you err and when you slide from your own standards, you got to own it. You just got to say, "Man, I blew it. I'm sorry. I'm not perfect at this. And I'm counting on you guys to help pick me up just the way I would if you slid as well." And I think that vulnerability is key. And back to that relatability component, when people see that I'm human, I made a mistake. Yeah, I'm the guy, I'm evangelizing these principles, but I'm not perfect and I'm going to stumble, but we pick each other up, right? That's not just me to you. You got to pick me up as well. And that creates a bond that I think is far more important and transcends the workplace. It's more about people connecting at that point.
And what do you think helped to turn around? What was it, words or questions? What helped you turn around that situation?
Well, so we've all been in this situation where a new leader comes in and they're trying to, like hell, to put their stamp on an organization, trying to they want to have an impact, and they dive straight to the results. They drive straight to, here's where we are, here's where we need to be. Let's talk about how we get there. And for me, it's really transformed into more about, who are you? What inspires you? What motivates you? What fills your cup in this role? And I'm not naive. You're probably not going to be in this role forever. So outside of this role, what's next for you? And having those interactions and the conversations, understanding from where someone's coming, what it is, why do they get up in the morning? Beyond the commitments of bills, and I get that. We all have those things. But I just think it's incumbent on the leader to bridge that gap, to say, what do you need from me? What role can I play in your growth? Not just here in the workplace. So we got to establish the connection first. While that's happening, our standards are out there. They're widely communicated. We're not ambiguous about it. They're conspicuous. They're everywhere. I still wear bracelets, a 10 We bracelet. Today is We Embrace Challenge. They've got to be conspicuous. And when those standards are set, it's easier, not easy, but it's easier to address slippage. It's easier to address when people are behaving ways contrary to the principles because I can point to them. The expectations are very, very clear. And that's, I think, where most leaders get it wrong is they don't set those expectations. So people are kind of left to their own interpretation of expectations. And you know what happens then? Very rarely are we going to be really explicitly aligned when those expectations are not explicitly communicated.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
For
that.
me.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's been great catching up, Kyle. Our time's gone very, very quickly. I always, finish, I guess, with the same question, and that is, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 17-year-old self who had just come home from the Pearl Jam concert?
Find when the next show is and see if you can get tickets would be the first answer. Back in those days, it was really hard to get tickets. There was no internet, basically. We had to dial in. But I get the spirit of your question. And it's an interesting question because the truth is, if someone handed me my book at a young age, 17, 20, early in my career, whatever, I probably would have tossed it aside. And I hate that answer, but it's the truth because there's experience matters. And that experience allows one to transition from being a product of their environment to becoming the leader that they want to be or the leader that they're capable of being. And that's hard to come out of undergrad or even your MBA saying, I'm the leader that I've always wanted to be. The experience really does, and putting in the reps really does enable you to be the most impactful leader that you can be. So my advice would be yourself. Be you, authentically you. Do not modify your behavior, now, please don't get me wrong. I get it. Inside the workplace, there's a level of decorum that we're all expected to demonstrate. But there's this fake it till you make it kind of mentality that so many of us are influenced to operate by and with that removes our authenticity. It tells us don't be vulnerable. It tells us that we should have all the answers. It tells us that our colleagues are actually competition, which is not the case. They should be collaborators with us. But when you're yourself, you're spending your brain power on doing right, not trying to be right. You're spending your brain power on trying to find optimal outcomes, make an impact, be fulfilled. And I just don't think we have it within us to, at least not for a long period of time, it's not sustainable to be one person half the time focused on your own accolades. Look at me, but then also be a caring leader. I don't think we can do both. So I think that level of authenticity, you being you, warts and all, is my be all end all line of encouragement.
Yeah, wonderful advice, because when we are ourselves, when we are authentic, it keeps us on the right track. It really does. And, that authenticity flows to other people, and also sharing, vulnerabilities as well. If you share a vulnerability, it gives other people permission to share theirs. And
That's it.
That makes a very, very big difference,
That's it. And the opposite is true as well, Graham. If I'm this corporate robot to which no one can relate, they're not going to be their authentic selves either. They're going to put a mask or a facade on, and I'll never know the real person behind that. But for other people to go, you got to go first. That's just how it works. And if you're not comfortable with that, you should question whether you're a boss or a leader, because a boss is really comfortable just checking boxes and saying, here's what I need you to do. Yeah. Where a leader obviously is going to do so many more things, care, invest time, energy, and work to create an environment that people can be their best versus demanding it. And I think it's a very different approach.
A great way to wind up. Thank you very much, Kyle, for being part of the Caring CEO, and really loved our chat. And we're both on the same page with the we side of things. I've got a new book coming out called Great Leaders Care, and it's about building safe, resilient, and successful teams. And, I guess we've both seen that if that's done right, it can lead to amazing results. So thanks for being part of the show.
Hey, Graham, it's my pleasure, man. You're doing really important work, and it's an honor to be here with you today. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm so glad we could make this work, especially with our different hemispheres and our time zone differences. So thank you for bearing with me on that, man. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.